All right, Chelsea fans, we're back with another episode of the London is Blue podcast. As always, your host, Brandon, joined my co-hosts, Nick and Dan. We're still on the infamous KC couch, getting ready to leave, but we have one last objective here.
Oh, is that my cue? Yeah, look, we've been a little busy, it turns out, with all the football recently, the 100 matches in 101 days, basically, that's happened over the last month and a half. And so while that's been going on, we've also been planning for what the hell we were going to do during the World Cup. And the lack of Chelsea provides us with an interesting opportunity, Dan, to use your language, an interesting opportunity to do something a little different than we would typically do this time of year when the football is at its peak.
Yeah, well, we will have the Chelsea women return at some point during the World Cup period, so don't count that out, because you're going to have Jesse, Abdullah, yourself, and a host of others still talking about that. We've got plenty of people on our roster. You know, we don't do a call-up, a squad call-up. There's no official announcement like that there, but we've got...
We should do one, though.
It would be funny.
We should put out a graphic.
Well, why weren't we invited to the top of Empire State Building to light it up?
I feel like...
Blue.
I feel like we didn't even make our own graphic.
No.
You know, unfortunately.
It's really unfortunate.
So, we obviously are going to fill this 45-day gap, which we've been talking about on the pods. Like, how is this going to work for Potter and stuff? Well, we also have to find time, and we're not flying to a warm weather training camp. We are stuck here.
What?
Yep. You're on your own, Dan.
Yeah, we were going to do it in KC, but apparently it's really cold. So
this is going to take a while to get over this. I think to kick it off, the three things that we want to talk about today are our thoughts heading into it generally. This is a very controversial World Cup for many reasons. And then we'll talk a little bit about what we think about the U.S. And potentially the UK, since we have a lot of Chelsea players representing that team. And then, obviously, we'll go into our specific plans of content so you know what to expect and can prepare yourselves as well. So, generally running over kind of the World Cup and how you feel about it, Nick. I remember when the draw was announced, I was in college. I was in the cafeteria, and I saw Russia and Qatar get pulled out from Sepp Blatter and announced as host cities. And even back then, and that would have been like 2008 or 9, I think. Even then, I knew as a young, dumb college kid that, like, this is corrupt. Like, this is insane.
yeah, look, December 2nd, 2010 is a day that will live in infamy. It was a very cold day in Lincoln, Nebraska, where I was hanging out with a couple of buddies from the American Outlaws, and you know, I think most of the reporting at the time, if you go back, the consensus was, and even admitted by Sepp Blatter himself recently, was that the U.S. was going to win the bid for that World Cup, that 2022 World Cup. You know, obviously had a hugely successful tournament here in 1994, Dan. You know, the growth of soccer over the previous 5 or so years had been huge here with the 06 World Cup and the qualifying campaign for 2010 and then the 2010 World Cup. And, you know, in that period, it just seemed like all the stars were going to align for the U.S. to host the 2022 World Cup. It was also thought that England would win the 2018 World Cup. So you'd have back-to-back kind of World Cups in those two countries. And what ended up happening was, as our friends at the World Corrupt podcast, Roger Bennett and Tommy Vitor would put it, was one of the most corrupt bidding processes of all time.
Obviously corrupt.
Like, incredibly corrupt.
Well, you know you've done a bad job of preparing for how to handle this from a media PR exposure standpoint when you have a single Wikipedia page dedicated to the corruption and the controversy of the 2022 World Cup. And you not only have multiple sections, but you have subsections underneath the sections. Look, when somebody has to actually create the content table for it, you have done a lot of terrible things, from the human rights abuses to the money likely shifting hands to secure the placement to the shifting of this to the winter time, which has disrupted the entire calendar. I mean, you could go into any one of those, and that is a full podcast series to go into. I think the World Cup one from the good people at Crooked, and then also Men in Blazers is a very nice kind of co-production that they've been able to put together.
Highly encourage you guys to go listen to that if you're interested in all of the like geopolitical stuff that went on. Like, it's obviously not reporting that we're doing original reporting here, but it's kind of well told at this point. So if that is something where you're like, you guys put a little bug in my ear to go listen to something about that, they already got that covered. We are going to do that here.
Well, and what's interesting is you also, even in this run up to it, you have reports of the Qatari government paying fans to post positive things on social, to go to these events, to
propaganda,
to be snitches,
for migrant workers being pushed out of the temporary housing that they were in so that they could make space for the people who are going to be in the games, from ministers saying don't showcase your, don't share that you're like a member of the LGBT Q plus community, because we don't care about that for the next 28 days. Like, all of these things, it is a terrible place, and it should have never been selected.
I mean, yeah.
So obviously, a lot of content is coming out around it right as it goes. We have the Netflix series, which I hadn't seen yet either. Blatter's trying to do a PR run to kind of wash his hands of the terrible decisions he made, but I think for me, it ruins a lot of it. And I think this gets back to like a moral discussion. These athletes and the coaches and the referees and the support staffs of these teams have been working for large parts of their lives towards something like this. They didn't choose it, right? The people who are responsible for growing and maintaining the game have massively failed the entire soccer world and community. And now we're in this moral dilemma of, well, how do we protest? How do we bring awareness to the human rights issues and all these different things that are going on in this part of the world that should never have been? And these are the heavy-hitting issues. We're probably not even going to get into the fact that in their summer proposal, they said that they were going to have technology to change weather to make it cooler in the summer. Like, this Qatar bid from the beginning.
That's what Mr. Burns did in The Simpsons.
At least he did it, is my point.
Fair.
And then they get down like, hey, guys, so we can't do that. How about a Winter World Cup? And it's like, no, you submitted and accepted a summer proposal. Now we're in a Winter World Cup. We've never been in this situation. It's in the smack middle of a season of almost all countries. Not everyone, because I know Brazil and U.S. and a lot of Central America are on different schedules. But now this has massive repercussions and kind of a ripple effect.
Yeah, I mean, I think we were out to dinner on Friday night, and we're having some delicious KC barbecue. Highly recommended if you're ever in town. And we just started talking about, I think you started talking about, do you remember this corrupt FIFA person? Do you remember that? And then we started going on this choose your own adventure of all of these people who are like, oh yeah, I forgot about how corrupt that guy was. Chuck Blazer.
Yeah, Jack Warner.
Yeah, with his apartment of cats. And all this stuff has been covered on multiple podcasts before. And we are not, FIFA regulatory experts. We're not even going to pretend like we are. But it's also just brings to light, I think, the conundrum for a lot of fans. Can I, in good conscience, tune into this World Cup and root for my home nation or a nation that I, have adopted as my own, and feel okay about that? And I think no one has explored this issue better to me than John Oliver, who has done multiple episodes of his show Last Week Tonight on FIFA and the corruption, and has also done a lot of podcast appearances, even on Men in Blazers throughout the years, to go, I mean, it's obvious that they're corrupt, but I still want to watch it, and I feel weird, but I'm probably going to, and I think that's how they get away with the nonsense. Dan, to me, is the appeal of the product still reigns supreme in a lot of ways, and it does not mean that the other stuff isn't real and it doesn't impact people. It's just, you're just going to have record audiences this winter, I think.
Well, you have in the U.S., because we know we have a diverse geo-distributed audience, we have John Hamm playing Santa Claus in the Fox coverage promo where he is essentially 'tis the season for the World Cup, and you watch it and you see a little clip of the U.S. team playing, and emotionally, yeah, you get excited to think about what your nation, what people are choosing to represent you and us on this stage would be possible of achieving. And if you put it in a neutral place in your head, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, this is great. The moment you realize or wake up to the reality, much like the reality that, I probably shouldn't say Santa Claus. Santa Claus is definitely real.
For all the kids who have put up with our voices in the car going to school with their
Santa
parents.
Claus, super real, and he better be
100%
well
real.
behaved.
Yeah.
There's a list.
It's definitely a list. So I think it is a tough thing to grapple with, and I don't think we will solve the moral quandary of do you watch, don't you watch. That's a personal choice for people to kind of go after.
But it's also it's this organization putting the individual in a position where they have to make that choice
Absolutely.
and not doing the right thing up front.
And
that's what sucks.
Well, and like, okay, other organizations and things, you could probably try to incite change. Mm-hmm. I could not tell you how in the world anybody fan-wise could incite change at FIFA. Like, and it's because the product they have is so limited and so big that, like,
it's so lucrative.
We have to watch it a little bit because this is a short window that we get to see this one of a kind tournament.
Scarcity every 4 years.
In we can't, like, they're not elected officials in that sense of like where, and it's 1-to-1 vote, right? So when you talk about like I feel helpless as a fan because if they go and get 15 small countries to support whatever, because they get money, they're going to give them maybe a small tournament. Like there was that tournament, and I think the AFCON someone hosted who had no business hosting, and it was like a safety disaster. But they did it for bribery or to get the bigger things through or whatever. You see it a lot in the youth tournaments. I read a lot about the books and the things. The youth are used as bargaining chips in these tournaments and things like that, and it's so sad to see. And I think that's what I struggle with is like, they've built the wall so high and protected themselves so well with this 1-to-1 vote system and things like that, that like we're at the mercy of how rich they can make themselves.
Yeah, it's mob politics. I mean, like you really want to put it out there. It is truly mob politics. You're right. You don't get to vote these people out. Like there is no like standard election where if you're angry at the direction of FIFA that you can go vote for another person.
Well, and how do you think Infantino got in? He had to go kiss the rings and agree to play by the rules.
Well, and here's, I guess, last point is if Interpol, the FBI, and whatever international crime-fighting organizations can't take these people down,
League.
I just don't know how it's done. And like, obviously, mid 2010s, there was a raid. I forget what, it might have been 2015, 2016, something like that. There was a raid. Sepp Blatter arrested, indicted, and charged, and then charges dropped at the end, right? Same with Michel Platini and a lot of these folks who were kind of at the top levels of the power rankings at FIFA. And I really do think there's been just some fantastic reporting about the Qatar migrant crisis and building these stadiums. I do want to shout out an excellent journalist in Jeremy Schaap, who was reporting on this years ago, did some undercover research, did a lot of video where he was talking to migrants who could not get their visas back to go home. It is tragic what has happened here. Thousands and thousands and thousands of people have died because of greed. At the end of the day, more than anything else,
because they had to build actual cities to host this.
This is a state the size of Connecticut hosting a World Cup,
and they didn't have enough cities, stadiums, or any infrastructure for this. It's all built up. Like, I think it's fair to make some connections to Firefest. I think we'll see how it all kind of shakes out in the end. But
FIFA's Firefest, the 3-word tournament preview.
We'll put together on our website. Just we'll list as many of these resources as we can, and then we'll put it out on social so everyone can go do it. But like again, it's not hard to find this content and these articles. So
well, and I think it's also keeping an awareness open throughout the tournament too. Because there will be reporting about incidents that occur or crop up. And I think it's as we talk about the World Cup and potentially how we're going to watch it, I think continuing to use platforms to say like, hey, here's they said they weren't going to do this. Here's what they ended up doing. This is why this country cannot host this type of tournament again.
Yeah, and I think last point that I'd make on this opening section, which has been pretty dark and tough, admittedly, is I really do feel for those fans who are struggling to figure out if this is a tournament that they want to support because of all this stuff, right? I think under any other circumstances, a winter World Cup with all the kind of magic of the holiday season might have been really cool and interesting. I think right now, it does put you in a personal dilemma to figure out kind of how you're going to go watch. And like, I am going to go watch. That's a decision that I've made as a fan, because I want to root on my home country, and I want to see if they can do it after being absent for 8 years from this tournament. But it's not come without kind of personal thoughts and questions along the way. And so, again, it's such a bummer, Dan, for FIFA to put everyone in this position.
I think it's, in my mind, changed the fact that in previous World Cups, I would just leave it on and try to watch as many of the matches as possible. It probably narrows the amount of matches that I will watch in dramatic fashion to being very specific to a few.
Someone on Discord's like, I'm going to watch, but I'm going to find illegal streams so they don't get the revenue for the advertisers. And I get that. I think people aren't buying kits, also because they suck. But I think how I've come to it, Nick, as well, is I'm going to watch, but you better believe I'm going to have that conversation and continue to highlight the things that I'm upset with, the organizers and things. And that's kind of how I'm going to make sure that I'm at least trying my best to make sure these very well-documented and obvious things are also being acknowledged at the same time.
Well, there's situations where you were talking about how you're going to go to your pub for one of the USA matches, the USA-UK match, and that's a business.
That's England, Dan.
Sorry, England.
They don't play as the UK.
So you're going to go to this game. That's a institution, a bar, restaurant that would have to make a choice. Like, if they feel that it's not great to shut down business during a time that's going to generate a much additional revenue for them as well.
Shouts to Brits Pub, a pub that we all love.
Yeah. I mean, that's the plan. So anyways, as we look at the home countries, and I said it plurality with plurality, Nick, obviously we'll look at the United States. Most of our audience is of the United States citizenship, but obviously we have a lot of family and friends in England as well, and a lot of Chelsea ties to that. We had it in our last podcast of kind of the Premier League season before the break. We just talked about how many of the players at Chelsea are going to the World Cup. So plenty of ways to watch and find exciting angles for Chelsea fans, but specific on the U.S. side, just a paltry plus 13,000 odds to win.
Yeah, look, if you've paid attention to my Twitter, because we don't do a U.S. men's national team podcast here, you'll know that I am not very bullish on the U.S. squad. My soliloquy about the U.S. is I think this is the most talented United States men's national team squad ever. I don't think it can really even be argued how much more talent, how many more European players there are in this. And I mean players who play professionally in Europe, when I say that, are in this squad. I think
that's a good clarification, because actually there aren't many European players in the squad, which is a bit of a change.
So, this is not the 14 squad of Jurgen Klinsmann, which we went through on Friday night, too, where we were like, Aaron Johansson, what?
Julian Green.
You're like, wait a minute. But, I mean, on its face, it is a really talented squad. I think what I struggled to see throughout qualifying, just as a ardent U.S. men's national team fan, is any sort of game plan. And that is tough to say. I mean, it's a group of really talented individuals that have to figure out a way to come together and fight for each other in a collective moment, because international football and Premier League football are, I think Jesse Marsh actually said this the other day, they're like two different sports. You get such limited time with your international teammates, Dan, to put together a cohesive unit. And you're expected to do that now in the middle of a Premier League season, which is already crazy. And it just is going to require a really solid game plan and a group of people who are willing to fight for each other.
We're not going to have that.
You get 1 week with the players.
Yeah, I mean, it is truly an uphill climb for Berhalter.
No. Brandon figured this out. Brandon came up
true.
with the roadmap
It's true.
for how the U.S. gets
Go
out of
on.
qualifying.
I, first of all, need
Galaxy
to be
brain.
on retainer and paid a consultant fee if you do this. Otherwise, I'm suing. Look, I think everyone knows that I'm a Greg out supporter. To your point,
I actually think you've been his biggest fan.
well,
Triple G? You ain't on the Triple G train?
all I'm saying is that, to your point, he'll start a game, realize that his plan was not at all correct. 3 subs at halftime, has to completely rip it up and start over and go back to his better players. And so what I was laughing with Cody Cropper about this last week, I was like, I think we should sack Greg after the first game so that way we get the new manager bounce for the second game.
You really want to go into England with just a whole new perspective.
You know, siege mentality, like rip the heart of the team out and the manager, and then just let the players ball.
Yeah, I mean,
Who comes in as your fictional
Yeah.
coach then?
It sounds like Christian Roldan because apparently that's why he's
Oh,
there is
come
because he's a
on.
coach.
Wow.
At
Come
this
on.
point, no, think all the pundits are gonna have there. I bet like Tim Howard's gonna be over there. Like, where's Jermaine Jones at? Is he punditing somewhere?
Punditing.
Like,
In your
Stu
fictional
Holden's gonna be
world?
there. Alexi Lala is on the
Lawless.
desk.
In your fictional world, that is the best you can do in terms of a replacement coach?
Lawless
No.
would just be chaos.
Oh my God.
It'd be chaos.
Maybe it'd shut him up because he finally realizes how hard it is. No, in my fictional world, you literally leave it as open-ended chaos. You don't replace it because that's the point. You rip the cancer out of the team and then you let them just go on their own.
Look, there's some top quality managers out there that might be looking for work at the moment.
Yeah.
Short notice. Anyways, go through the England group real quick and kind of give us the rundown of what to
The
expect.
England group, as
Wow.
in
Not
they've
even-
already won
He's
it.
completely brainwashed me with his nonsense.
Unbelievable. Look, this is especially weird for us and our followers all over the UK because the U.S., England, Wales, and Iran are all in the same World Cup group, as if that wasn't both geopolitically and neighborly kind of rivalry charged, if you will. So the schedule is as follows. U.S. plays Wales in the opening game. England then plays Iran. Then it goes to U.S. England and Iran Wales, and then U.S. Iran and England Wales, and that's for the group. It's gonna be interesting.
I have a Wales kit.
Do you?
Yeah, he's got Welsh heritage.
Is that the red beard? Is that where that comes from?
It might be.
Interesting. Okay.
So
know,
that'll
wow.
be fun.
It'll be a testament. See if you're wearing it during the.
Loyalties divided by Brandon
England,
Busby.
Wales, I will be. You better believe that.
Sure. Okay. Well,
So-
Wow.
To our UK friends, go after him, not the rest of us. That's
You mean our English friends?
sure.
It is fun. We played England back in the 2010 World Cup. We're reliving that a little bit.
Rob
As
Green.
much as we love Rob Green for being the hero of Baku, he has an extra special place in the hearts of United States fans as he let one through the old wickets and dribble in.
That was my first ever soccer watch party at scale in the U.S. We were outside in the summer when the World Cup should be played.
Facts.
And it was hot as hell in Lincoln, Nebraska. There were about 15,000 people in this little spot or whatever. And we absolutely went bananas when that goal went in. It was incredible.
Well, England do have better odds in this World Cup.
Sure.
Plus
Slightly.
850 versus ours.
Here's a question for
I mean,
our...
they got to the semifinals and they've done well in the last 2 international tournaments.
Here's a question for our English friends. Would you rather have Southgate or Triple G?
They might not know about how bad he is.
Yeah, but I think they feel a way about Southgate.
For sure.
And frankly, I would make that swap.
Oh, yeah, I would do that swap 100% of the time.
Well, yeah, for us, we
Yeah.
would definitely.
That's an immediate upgrade. Immediate upgrade for the U.S.
Immediate.
I think, both teams, or I guess they have a lot of some back and forth on the rosters. We're still gonna have to see what the actual fitness levels are of these players. Like I said, there's only a little bit of time that they're gonna have to get in, get settled in camp. I think we were saying it was a 10-hour flight from England to Doha. and then they're gonna have to recover, kind of just get adjusted to a new time zone. There's a lot of things that go into this as well.
Yeah.
Like, are they carrying knocks? Where their fitness levels at? So it's gonna be really tight turnaround. We'll have to see. But I mean, I'm excited to play England in the sense of it has nothing to lose for us, right? All we can do is, like in 2010, is get a draw, which feels like a win. Potentially like knock them down a peg a little bit, because we always have the soccer versus football debate.
Be wearing a sweater that has soccer on it that day, so just get ready. But yeah, I mean, it's good, right? Group stages go from November 20th until December 2nd. Like, that's the end of the group stages. The round of 16 goes from the third to the 6th. Quarterfinals from the 9th and 10th. Semifinals 13th and 14th, and third place playoff the 17th of December, final on the 18th of December. So it's a month. It's essentially a month of football in the middle of December.
8 days later, the Premier League returns.
Yep. Either on Boxing Day or on the 27th, as you guys corrected me about Chelsea's schedule yesterday. So it's really a 45-day break for Graham Potter.
44 at this point.
Thank you, Dan. Always with math that's helpful and not at all annoying.
It's a subtraction.
All right, cool. And it's, I don't know, man. It's the wildest shit we've ever seen.
Yeah. I really think this is going to be like two identifiably different Premier League seasons, like the pre-World Cup and the post-World Cup. And especially the other little twist is, as we always talk about, you buy the one player who did the one thing and then regret it 6 months later. It's right before the the transfer window, so there's gonna be some World Cup purchases.
So here's the question for Nick: one player on the U.S. team that stock is, if the U.S. does well, their stock is going to be so much higher.
Oh, so there are a couple.
Who has the most to gain from this World Cup?
Essentially, yeah.
So the two players that I would put on that list would be Tyler Adams and Weston McKennie. Both midfielders. McKennie plays with Juve. Juve obviously out of the Champions League at this stage, into the Europa League. And Tyler Adams obviously playing for Leeds. Those two players, I think, have the highest potential ceiling coming out of this. I don't know about Christian. I don't know how he's going to play in this tournament. He will certainly play his favorite position. I can tell you that right now, on the left wing. So we'll have to see if he goes in and does the business. But the U.S. has problems all over the field that we have to figure out how to do something with. Where you place Serginho Dest, how you fit Aronson, Gio Reyna, and Musa into the squad. Who plays striker for this team is uncertain, and the defensive partnership between Walker Zimmerman and either a resurgent 35-year-old Tim Ream playing for Fulham, or Aaron Long coming back from a long-term Achilles injury. Those are the questions. It's a team that is light on defense and hopefully is big on heart.
All out attack, baby.
Nothing like putting in brand new people into a system right at the very end, Greg. Appreciate that. So anyways, that's a lot about the World Cup, obviously. We will have a bunch of different types of content in the World Cup. We've never had to deal with this before. And so what we kind of came up with some ideas. Obviously, we want to record after the group stages, probably with a U.S. focus, because of our nationality and a lot of our big audience, and just a little bit selfishly, that's what we'll be paying attention to. But it'll be kind of in perspective of the group as well.
Yeah, it's also a convenient group for us and our friends across the pond. Like,
very much so.
Lots to cover there.
That's very much so. We've already lined up Matt and Naz, who are gonna be in Qatar. So we'll get maybe a broader view of, hey, how's it going there? What's it like? What are you guys seeing? I remember we were WhatsApping with Naz when he was in Russia. We got some really good insight into what it was like for him being there. And so we'll get on the ground coverage from them, Dan. We'll get to talk a little bit more broadly about the tournament and kind of obviously be able to pick out some results. We'll get to talk to them about what games they've gone to and things like that as well.
Yeah, we've seen their schedules, and it is quite crazy in terms of, we thought our summer tour with them was crazy. This is a whole nother level of travel and logistics crazy.
Thank gosh it's the size of Connecticut, not Russia again.
This is
travel
true.
will be easy.
Just get a rental car. You guys are going to be just fine. Yeah, look, I mean, in addition to the World the World Cup content, we have Chelsea content still coming your way. We know that you guys need your fix, right? This is not something we're just going to become an international podcast for the better part of 45 days. We have the famous CFC doing series 2, I should say, of their wonderful podcast. Those episodes are evergreen. They're about Chelsea's history. They're about stories. They're about connective tissue from now into the past. And I highly recommend you guys go listen to the first 7 episodes over this time. But we have some kick-ass plans for that episode, or for that series. I can't even talk today. For that series to continue on Fridays throughout the World Cup. It's going to be a perfect time slot for those guys to come back and really do some business, Dan.
Yeah, very much looking forward to it. If you haven't listened to them, this is a good reminder that maybe you are looking for more content at the moment. Go back and check them out.
Blue Royalty?
Blue Royalty, of course.
Yep.
Always available.
Continuing through that period. So it's actually a really great schedule if you want to, if you haven't really tuned into the Chelsea women before, but you still need your Chelsea fix. They are playing basically throughout the World Cup, and you can find those in the States on like Paramount Plus or streaming on YouTube for the Champions League on DAZN.
And this is crazy,
but
they frequently score goals.
Turns out that they're also entertaining as hell to watch, and highly recommend that you tune into Blue Royalty because basically the minute the men get back, they go on an international break.
Which is convenient for sure.
Nice little overlap there.
Yeah. The dev squad will be off because there actually are a lot of U21, U22 players involved in the World Cup rosters. Mm-hmm. The U18s will still play. So Phil and I will figure out what we want to do with that. But then we also are going to bring the Chelsea angle to the World Cup. Dan, you've been working with Sam or CFCcentral on some, I would say, some pretty cool scouting content.
Yeah, because you think about this, that Chelsea are going to likely go buy a player or two, some type of reinforcements during the winter window post World Cup. They're going to be players that Chelsea might already be eyeing and saying, hey, these are the players in midfield or an attack that we want to go after. Obviously, there have been a lot of links with players like Nkunku and Gvardiol, who we are looking at, but there are more out there. And there's a lot of players who are going to get an opportunity to impress. And so we're selecting a few that we're going to go a little deeper on with Sam, that Y Scout membership, to dig into the specifics of why they would be a good fit at Chelsea and kind of track like who that power ranking of player is that we should go after post World Cup.
Yes, Sam is Mario already, right? He's the hero of the story. But then you add Y Scout, and it's like the little mushroom that makes him go faster. He's just
the mushroom doesn't make him necessarily go faster.
Oh God, look what you did. He powered up. Yeah. All right, he
were powered up. See, we're talking about the star.
We were all having a good time, and then I made a huge error. Huge.
Nick does mushrooms once. Look what happens.
Oh man.
So yeah, lots of
for the FBI agents listening to this call. That's incorrect.
Surely that's not their biggest priority. But yes, a lot of Chelsea content as well. Like I said, it's just going to be balanced between the World Cup and Chelsea. We're still going to be posting on our feeds quite regularly. It just will be a little bit different. But like I said, throw out ideas if our listeners out there have, as we get into this, because we've never, like I said, had to do something like this before. But I think we've kind of covered it at all angles. We might find some other content that we'll be able to share out on the feed as well from friends and have some appearances like that, and some pop-up stuff is just opportunities arise. But it's going to be a good World Cup. I mean, at the end of the day, we're gonna find a way to stay engaged with the community and put out some fun content.
Yeah, go follow us on TikTok. Go follow us on, I say this lightly, Twitter. If you haven't already, make sure you're stuck in on Patreon and Discord. The community there is still going to be rocking and rolling during the World Cup, and it's something we're super proud of. We have all these folks who are so dedicated to not only the pod but Chelsea writ large, and making it a really tolerant and good community. So
and they have conversations about everything else too. Not just about football.
There's a golf channel.
Look,
on
get
Discord.
stuck in on Andor. Get caught up on Andor and chat with us about it there.
Yeah, it is a good, just like a community of people that started because of Chelsea and branched out into literally every other part of life, which is awesome. We appreciate that. All right. Anyways, that's up. We got to go to brunch, gentlemen. This has actually got me a little bit more excited. Not necessarily for the World Cup, but I guess for what our plans are for the World Cup. I have to say, I'm pleasantly surprised that you guys pulled this one out.
Wow. And it's that sort of belief that keeps our podcast going, folks.
Mimosas on me on 3. All right. Anyways, we're going to cut there. But yes, a lot more content. It's not going to stop. We're not going to slow down. We're excited. It's just more soccer. It's not like it's gone away. And we're just going to get stuck in.
Just different.
It is very different. All right. Until next time, Chelsea fans, you know what to do. Keep the blue flag flying high.